Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Ohio EPA's Permitting and Licensing for CNDD Processing Facilities webinar. This workshop is being recorded and will be made available to participants at a later date. We have a few little housekeeping things as we get started. Environmental health specialist credits have been requested for this presentation today, but have not been approved. At the conclusion of the webinar, anyone interested in receiving credits must complete a short survey to verify their attendance. If credits are approved, Ohio EPA will submit your name to Ohio Department of Health to get those CEUs. All participants joining today's workshop are set to mute. If you have questions during the training, please type them in the chat throughout the training. You may also email your questions to leanne.greenlee@epa.ohio.gov or jeffrey.montavant@epa.ohio.gov. Those email addresses will also be in the chat for you. Questions will be answered at the conclusion of the presentation, but like I said, we encourage you to submit them as you think of them. A recording of today's presentation will be available at a later date. Please visit Ohio EPA's YouTube channel to review past training sessions that were offered by the agency. So today's presentation will be on rules regulating construction and demolition debris processing facilities that became effective earlier this year. In this webinar, Barry Chapman, Environmental Health Specialist with Ohio EPA's Division of Materials and Waste Management and part of our CNDD unit, will provide an overview of these rules and explain the various authorizations needed to establish and operate a processing facility. He will cover both standalone and co-located processing facility requirements and highlight the differences between them. Barry, we're ready when you are.
All right, thanks, Leanne. Here we go. All right, well, good morning, everybody. Like Leanne said, I'm Barry Chapman. I'm with the Division of Materials and Waste Management, C&D unit. I've been with the agency and with the division for about 22 years in various roles. And so this is my latest role in the C&D unit. And today we'll be talking about the new C&D processing facility regulations and kind of go over what the program's all about. So let's begin. So a few years ago, we've had, I don't want to call them facilities, we had some sites that were poorly managed, and we had to do some major cleanups. I used some state funds to do major cleanups for these sites. So what the General Assembly did is they passed Senate Bill 2, and that allowed us to develop regulations for these C&D processing facilities. We have adopted rules for these processing facilities, and basically what they're for is for responsible recycling of C&D, and we want to divert this material from the landfills. So what is C&D processing? We've created this program. What is actually processing? So here's the definition. It's basically handling construction demolition debris to separate it into different types of materials and want them to be used in a beneficial manner, basically not disposing of them. So handling is receipt or storage or movement from vehicles or containers to the working surface at the facility. So we also have then the definition of a processing facility, which is, as you see, site, location, tract of land, on and on, that is used for processing, transferring, or recycling of C&D that was generated off premises of the processing facility. So we have some exclusions to these rules, and they do not include a facility that is a licensed solid waste transfer facility, a licensed solid waste landfill, or a licensed C&D landfill where the processing of the mixed C&D happens totally within the unloading zone. there's some other exclusions, which include a processing facility that only has containers that have an aggregate volume of 50 cubic yards or less. And if they don't place it on the working surface or on any equipment used to separate C&D. So this is for like dumpster businesses where they bring in dumpsters of C&D and basically they can kind of transfer them between containers, but they can't put it on the ground. It has to stay in the containers and they have to have less than 50 cubic yards of material to get this exclusion. Or if they transport these portable containers from a location to the C&D facility or a processing facility, if it stays in the containers and is not stored for longer than 7 days, it's not a regulated C&D processing facility. They don't have to meet both of these exclusions. They can meet one or the other. But if they meet one of these, then they don't have to become a C&D processing facility. There are two types of C&D processing facilities. There's standalone and co-located. A standalone processing facility is not located at all within the facility boundary of a licensed C&D facility. And these rules became effective April 18th of this year. And we added some new rules to our C&D facility chapter 3745-400. 50 through 60, and they range from siting criteria to construction to operations to closure. So you can go through those rules, and basically it's the beginning of a facility till it closes. And then a co-located processing facility is one that is located totally within the boundary of a licensed C&D facility. And those rules became effective July 4th of this year. And we added the requirements for these types of facilities scattered within our C&D regulations. So you'll see here the different rules that we added for co-located facilities. So like definitions, design plan, operations, closure, and financial assurance and operator certification. So you can go look through there and find all those rules. These facilities, unlike the C&D landfill facilities, these facilities have permits and licenses. At least the standalone facilities do. So the standalone ones have a permit to install that's required, and that has to be renewed every 5 years. And then there's the annual operating license. Co-located processing facilities, they're sort of wrapped up in the landfill license. So that sort of acts as their permit. So they only need the annual license. So the application forms and everything else that you'll need to know about these facilities are located on our website. This is a long link here, but you'll be able to click the link if you get the PDF of this presentation, you'll be able to go here. Right now, I'm going to sort of give you a tutorial of our website just to show you how to get to that from our main page. So if you go to epa.ohio.gov, this is our main website. So you'll want to scroll down on the website, kind of halfway down, and there's our divisions. So there's all the different divisions. You'll click on the right arrow because we're not on the front page. It's all alphabetical. So there we are, materials and waste management. So you click on that, and there's the materials and waste management website. You can also go to epa.ohio.gov/DMWM, and that'll take you right to the website, and you can bookmark that. So that's just another easy way to get to our website, so you don't have to go through the main site. So to get to the permit and license applications, you'll go on the left-hand side. You'll see there's a list of different options to pick, and you'll want to go down to the permits, registrations, and licensing section. Click that, and you'll have these different tiles. So you'll see there's one for C&D facility licensing. That's for landfills and co-located facilities. And then there's the tile for standalone C&D processing facilities, and that's where the permit and license, obviously, for standalone facilities. So we have a permitting licensing authority, similar to landfills, where the licensing authority is the approved Board of Health, or if there isn't one in that jurisdiction, it's Ohio EPA. So that would also be the permitting authority. So the approved Board of Health or the EPA would be issuing the permits. So they would do both. So for all the application forms for C&D processing, the PTI and license applications for this year, this coming 2023 licensing season, they have to be either mailed in US mail, or they have to be submitted electronically through our electronic file submission website, and I will show you how to do that. There's a link here. You can go to that link or show you how to do that. So this is on the DMWIM main page. So you'll see, you scroll down a little bit in the middle, you'll see featured content, and then there's a few tiles there of things that you can pick. So there's DMWIM electronic file submission. So you'd click that, and then there's a list of all the different districts and then central office for where you want to submit your applications. You'll want to choose central office. You don't send it to the district office. You want to send it right to central office, and then we will disseminate that to everybody that needs to review it. So just remember to send it to central office. Standalone processing facilities, PTIs, and licenses. Any one of these types of facilities that were in operation before April 18th, they have to submit their initial PTI and license by October 18th of this year, so less than 2 weeks. And we've been doing a lot of outreach. We've basically talked to every facility that's been registered, and everybody should be aware of this deadline, at least that's operating now. So, but if there, are some stragglers, now's the time to get moving and get your applications in before the 18th or on the 18th. The PTI application, there's an application fee of $1,000. It also includes the processing facility design plan, a fire prevention and response plan, and then it has to have the draft of the financial assurance mechanism included with the PTI application. So there's an application fee, like we said, of $1,000 that's due when the application is submitted. And then once the PTI is issued, there's an issuance fee of $2,000. So the total for PTI is $3,000. The $2,000 issuance fee is due within 30 days of the PTI issuance. And like I said before, PTIs expire every 5 years. So these fees would be implemented every time that the PTI would be renewed. So every 5 years, they would have this cost. So the design plan, like I said, that's part of the PTI application. The design plan has to be signed and sealed by a professional engineer registered in the state of Ohio. And then the requirements for the design plan can be found in Rule 400-52. So the design plan has a lot of different drawings that are required. One of them is the cover sheet that has general information about the facility, the name of it, where it's located, the owner of the land that it's on, because it's not always the operator who owns the land, and the professional engineer who prepared that plan. And then a general roadmap that shows where the facility is and the property line and the facility boundary. So this is more like basic general kind of overview of what the site, where it is and kind of what it looks like. So then we have some other drawings of the facility that need to be in the design plan. A couple things to mention here. The property line has to be done by a professional surveyor licensed in Ohio. And then you'll see in the within 500 feet of the limits of C&D processing, oil and gas wells. If there are oil and gas wells within 500 feet, we need a letter from ODNR explaining those oil and gas wells. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're preparing an application. We need to know the type, location, depth, and status of the well. And that would be have to be a letter from ODNR. So just keep that in mind. And then more drawings. They're listed here. So you need to have all these in the proposed design and layout of the facility. And this is all located in the rules, so you can go look at that. And then there's detailed drawings that have to show everything that's listed here, existing and proposed roads, any surface water drainage and sediment control, any visual barriers, and all the working surfaces at the facility. There's also design calculations that are required. So we'll need to know the maximum rate of the processing in cubic yards per day. We also need to know the maximum volume of mixed C&D that may accumulate at any time, and that will be also used for the closure cost estimate for the financial assurance. And then we need to also know calculations for water drainage and any sediment control structures. So there's also a fire prevention and response plan that needs to be prepared. It has the emergency contact information for the site. There will also be a letter that we need from the local fire department saying that they'll respond to fires. And then guidelines for how the facility is going to handle debris that's burning or at a temperature likely to cause a fire. The fire and prevention and response plan has to be sent to the local fire department so they know kind of what's going on at the site, who to contact, and then they can send the letter back saying that they'll respond to the fires. So also included in the fire prevention and response plan, and then how their facility is going to respond to a fire, who they're going to notify, how they're going to operate the fire equipment, how they're going to get out by evacuation routes. And then we need documentation that they have adequate fire control equipment, any services available that they're going to use for any fires that happen. We need to know the maintenance schedules of their equipment and documentation performed. So we want to make sure that their fire extinguishers aren't expired and any other type of fire equipment is actually working and has been fixed up and is ready to be used. A map showing where the fire hydrants are and other types of fire control equipment. We've had issues in the past with sites that have basically buried their fire hydrants with debris. So basically rendering those fire hydrants unusable. And then when there was a fire, they weren't able to use the fire hydrants. So we want to make sure that we know where the fire hydrants are. So if, unfortunately, if that happens again, we'll kind of know what's going on. So as I alluded to before, the financial assurance mechanism, we need the draft included with the permit to install. If you don't know what financial assurance is, it's basically a financial instrument to make sure that there's money available so the state can pay for the cost of final closure if something happens to the owner or operator of the facility and they're not able or not willing to do closure of the site. The draft of the financial assurance mechanism includes the cost estimate, and then you have to pick the chosen mechanism, and then there's specific language and which is in a form. So we need that form as well. And then once the initial license is issued, that has to be funded. So that it doesn't have to be funded with the permit, but then in order to get your license, it has to be funded. So the way to calculate that cost estimate, there's a couple different dollar amounts that need to be added together. You have to know the horizontal limits of C&D processing, and then you have to know the maximum volume of mixed C&D that you're allowed to have on site. So once you know these two numbers, if the sum of these two numbers is $5,500 or less, then you do not need to get financial assurance. We found in the past that the cost of getting the financial assurance instrument could be that or possibly more, it just depends. So if your cost estimate is $3,000 and you have to pay $3,000 or $4,000 to get financial assurance, it's really not worth it. So we've determined that if your cost estimate's less than $5,500, you don't need to get financial assurance. So here's how you determine the fixed dollar amount by the size of your horizontal limits of C&D processing. So if you fall within any of these horizontal areas, then that's the first part of your closure cost estimate. So if you have a site that's 5 acres, that would be $25,000. And if you have less than 2,500 square feet, then it'd be $1,000. So there's that. And then the second part is the fixed dollar amount per cubic yard. And that would be that maximum volume of mixed C&D that I talked about times $35. So if you have 5,000 cubic yards of mixed C&D on your site, then you multiply that by $35. And here's the definition of mixed C&D. So it's C&D that's basically more than one type of C&D. And we're including recovered screen material, or as it's also known as RSM, that's not been processed into a commodity for reuse or recycling in a beneficial manner that does not constitute disposal. So you have a pile of mixed C&D on your site. That's how you determine the fixed dollar amount. So you add those two numbers together, and that's your closure cost estimate. Now, the mechanisms that I mentioned, there's 4 mechanisms that we've approved for these sites. 3 of these mechanisms will also require a standby trust, which is basically an empty account. So let's say you have this performance surety bond that has $20,000. That's, a $20,000 bond, and you have a standby trust. If we have to pull that bond and get that money, we put that money into the standby trust. That's only allowed to be used for closure at that site. So that's what the standby trust is for. So that was the PTI application and the requirements for that. Now for the annual license application, unlike for a landfill, for processing facilities, the application fee is $100. The financial assurance has to be funded, and then certified operator information has to be included in the license application. So there's a $100 application fee due at the time of submittal. Then once the license is issued, there's a $650 fee, and that's due within 30 days of license issuance. So total, it's $750, and that's for every year. So like I said, certified operator is required, just like for a landfill. The certified operator has to be reasonably available each day during operation. So if they're on vacation in Hawaii, that's not reasonably available. So the license application, as you've probably seen currently, you have to have the name and ID number of the certified operator or the name of the interim operator on the license application. To become a certified operator and to remain a certified operator, you have to have 12 months of daily operational work experience at one of these types of facilities. And then there's a minimum of 10 credit hours of approved education training before you can be certified and to renew your certification. These requirements have changed a little bit since July. So we used to require 4 hours of rules and laws and 6 hours of BMPs to make up the 10 hours. And we've heard from various people that the 4 hours every year seemed a little excessive and maybe not worth the time. So we changed it to a minimum of 2 hours in rules and laws and a minimum of 6 hours of BMPs. And then you have 2 hours of basically flex hours. You can earn whatever you want. So you can have 2 hours of rules and laws and 8 hours of BMPs, and that's fine. Or 3 hours of rules and laws and 7, as long as you meet these 2 minimum requirements and you make the 10 hours, that's what's the important part. And the certification lasts 1 calendar year, and it expires on December 31st. So operators need to submit their renewal applications before the 31st to keep their certification through the next year. And the forms that are necessary to become a certified operator and to renew and to request hours for training and all that, that's located on our website. We have a whole C&D certified operator website, and that has all the forms, and it also has a list of current training classes that have been approved and are available for everybody to take. So for interim operators, like I mentioned before, if you don't have a certified operator, you can have an interim operator. So I understand that, a lot of these processing facilities, they're new kind of to this whole C&D licensed regulation framework that the landfills have been in for years. So they're going to need certified operators, and they don't necessarily have the 10 hours of experience, the education training that they need to become that certified operator. So this is kind of, I'd like to say, kind of like a stopgap measure. So they can be an interim operator, and they can designate how long they want to be considered an interim operator, but they can't do it for longer than 365 days. So there's a form on our website. It's a one-page form that you fill out. It's got your information, your qualifications, you send it in. You meet the qualifications, you're an interim operator. And then you take your education training, you get your 10 hours, and then you fill out the certified operator form, and then you become certified. But when you're filling out your license application, if you don't have the certified one operator and you have an interim operator, that's just fine. So that's it for the standalone facilities as far as permitting and licensing goes. I'm going to move into the co-located processing facilities. So this is a different beast, as we like to say. Any of these facilities that were in operation before July 4th, which is when the rules went in effect, they have to apply for their initial license by December 31st of this year. Going forward, there'll be one application for co-located facilities and the associated facility, and that will follow the same September 30th licensing deadline, just like for the landfill renewals. So for initial licenses for these co-located that are not in existence before the rule, they have to apply with the next license for the facility. So for current operating co-located facilities, they have to apply for their initial license by December 31st. So what we've done, since we haven't been able to get the co-located facilities folded into the C&D facility licensing part of eBiz for this year, we've created this license addendum form, and this is only for the 2023 licensing year for co-located facilities. So this includes the information that covers the co-located processing facility, and this is what needs to be submitted before December 31st. The landfills should have already applied for their renewals back on September 30th. If they're a co-located facility, this is what they have to do before the end of the year. So there's an application fee of $100, just like for standalone. We need to know their certified operator information. There's the construction design plan. There's also the financial assurance cost estimate, and then they also have the fire prevention plan. So the design plan, again, needs to be prepared by a professional engineer. So if the facility has an engineer, landfill facility, then that's great. Hopefully they can use that engineer to do their co-located facility. Like I said, application fee is $100. It's due when the application is submitted. Then there's the license issuance fee of $650, and that's also due within 30 days of license issuance. So unlike the landfills, processing facilities that are co-located have to pay $750 a year to get their license. Again, the construction design plan has to be signed and sealed by the professional engineer registered in the state of Ohio. And those requirements can be found in 400-07. That's also the CND facility requirements are. That's one of the rules that we put the new requirements in. So what's in the construction design plan for these co-located facilities? So we want an environs plan drawing that has the facility boundary, those horizontal limits, any occupied dwellings within 500 feet of the horizontal limits of processing, and any perennial streams and Category 3 wetlands within 100 feet of horizontal limits. So that for these would be identified in the effective license. So you want to make sure that these basically are the siting criteria for these facilities. And then there's detailed drawings. And list here, I'm not going to read them all off. They're also located in the rule, but this is all the stuff that needs to be included in the facility. So the working surface, just to mention about the working surface, it has to be able to support processing and transferring operations. So it can either be concrete, asphalt, gravel, clay, soil, or any type of material that can support the equipment and all the material that's going to be at the facility. There's also design calculations. Again, we want to know the rate of processing in cubic yards per day, the maximum volume of the mixed C&D that's going to be at the site at any one time, and then the surface water drainage and sediment control structure calculations. So for the financial assurance, again, it has to be funded in an amount not less than the closure cost estimate authorized in the license, and that has to be funded within 30 days of license issuance. So to calculate that cost estimate, it's a little bit different than the standalone facilities. So it's based on the maximum volume of the mixed C&D allowed at the facility that they put in the license. So we have some different fixed dollar amounts depending on where the mixed C&D is located within the facility. So if you have that maximum volume of mixed C&D within the ALDA of the landfill, then you multiply that maximum volume by $4.25. If the mixed C&D is located outside of the ALDA, but still within the facility, then you multiply that maximum volume by $8.25. And then the third possible dollar amount that you could use is $35, like for the standalone facilities. And this is only used if the owner operator cannot demonstrate that they have enough constructed and certified airspace to dispose of that maximum volume of mixed C&D. So if for some reason they facility has 10,000 cubic yards of mixed C&D, and they don't have 10,000 cubic yards of constructed and certified airspace in their landfill, then they would have to multiply that maximum volume by $35. So there's also a fire prevention plan, just like for standalone facilities. It includes all this information. It's just like the landfills have to send the letter to the local fire department. It's part of the co-located processing facility license as well. So the plan also, like I said, for the other the standalone facilities, procedures for responding to a fire, documenting that their fire control equipment is working and not expired. Also the maintenance schedules, and then the map of the fire hydrants. So basically the same type of material that is required for those other standalone facilities. So if a facility needs help with filling out their permits, as long as it's not something that's required by a PE, our Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention can help out. They provide free and confidential assistance. So if you contact them, they can help you if you have questions about filling out the permit or license. And they can answer your questions. They can get you in touch with somebody who can. And something that they can also help with your permits and other types of authorizations that you might need. Everything I went over was for Division of Materials and Waste Management. These facilities may also require stormwater permits through the Division of Surface Water. They might also need fugitive dust permits or any other kind of air permits. Those are for Division of Air Pollution Control. So there's all different types of authorization from different divisions that may be require other permits from other divisions. So this is a small business environmental compliance and self-assessment guide. This is a good document to look at to see if you need any kind of these permits. If you do have questions, OCAP is a great place to go, and they can help you figure out if you're going to need any other types of permits. So here's OCAP's contact information. They're split up into the 5 different districts, just like the whole agency. So if you do have questions about your facility and you're in one of these districts, you would contact the person that's located in your district. And this is located on their website. So if you go to Ohio EPA's main website and you go to OCAP, and you can find the contact information for the Environmental Assistance Unit. So we've done webinars before. We've done a permitting and licensing requirement for standalone facilities. We did that back in June, and then we did a licensing requirement webinar just for co-located facilities. We did that a couple months ago. These are located on our website, and these are also located on the Ohio EPA YouTube channel. So these were recorded, and you can watch them So there's links either on the EPA YouTube channel or on Ohio EPA's on the DIMWA website. And this presentation is being recorded as well, so we will make that available. So here's the unit I'm in, the C&D unit. Aaron is the supervisor. We have two other great people that are working with us. So if you have any questions, you can shoot us an email or give us a call, and we'll all be happy to answer any questions that you have. If you don't get this information right now, it's on our website. So if you go to the C&D processing facility website, all of our contact information will be there. So thanks for paying attention. I appreciate your time. Here's my contact information again, just in case, if you didn't get it before. I said I'm available by email or by phone. So if you have any questions, give me a call and we'll get your questions answered. So that's all I had for this presentation. I wanted to know if there were any questions.
Okay, thank you, Barry. I do have a couple questions we wanted to get answers for. The first one, are C&D landfills that pull out clean hard fill subject to these rules?
No, we're not. We're not looking at clean hard fill type of operations as having to be licensed either, yeah, for co-located types of facilities.
Okay. Next one, who do I submit fees to when the health department is the permitting and licensing authority?
Good question. I guess I failed to mention that. You would send it to your health department. So the health department is a permitting and licensing authority. So they would be the ones that you submit the license and application, that permit application and the license application to. And they would be the ones who would process that application.
Okay, another one. Can you go over the two dates again when application submittals are due?
Yeah. So co-located facilities, if the facilities are currently operating, if they've operated before April 18th of 2022, and they wish to continue to operate under this new set of rules, they're required to submit their permit and license to the Permitting and Licensing Authority on or before October 18th of 2022. And then if there's a co-located facility that was operating before July 4th of 2022, and they wish to continue operating into next year, they have to submit that 2023 license addendum before December 31st. And then in subsequent years, so for 2024, the co-located license application is all going to be lumped in with the landfill license. So there'll just be one license for both types of facilities. And that'll, all the information that is required will be included in the license and, in the tabs, just like the landfill. So December 31st for co-located and October 18th for the standalone facilities.
Okay, looks like someone's typing, so let's give it a second, see if we have one more question. While I'm waiting on that, just a reminder, there will be a survey posted in the chat, and that is how we're going to verify attendance for if we get approved for registered environmental health sanitarian credits. Also, even if you're not requesting credits, please feel free to complete the survey and leave us feedback. Let us know what you thought of today's webinar and if there is room for improvement in future ones. I am not seeing any more questions coming in. So with that, we will conclude today's presentation. A recording will be available at a later date, and the survey has been posted in the chat by Jeff. And again, thank you for joining us.